Today we're going to go game by game, matchup by matchup for week 5 and look for those sneaky starts. Those players who are not expected to score a lot of fantasy points that could potentially exceed expectations. These are not projections. These are suggestions for those fantasy managers in deeper leagues that are struggling to set lineups, that are struggling with their flex spot, that are playing daily fantasy football on DraftKings, looking for cheaper players to throw into lineups for deeper tournaments, not suggested for cash. Those guys in dynasty leagues with a big roster trying to see who they can move around in your lineup this week. For those guys, these are suggestions for the week, going game by game, matchup for matchup. And if a lot of players hit in this week, that means I failed because I didn't go deep enough. We're going to be looking at jabroni players that could exceed expectations. Some of these will be deeper jabronis than others, but it'll be a good cascade of players. But before we dig in, you need to click that subscribe button right now. We're using these videos to help you set your lineups. Tomorrow, we'll be doing the must starts. We're pretty much talking about every player in the league and what their potential range of outcomes are. We use these videos to help you win the waiver wire. We deep dive as many players as possible throughout the week, all the trending players with the You Need series, so you can get the advanced analytics on those players and their situations and what they could potentially do for fantasy football and the strategies around those players. Click that subscribe button right now. Stop missing out. But our first jabroni player, I would consider him a jabroni light because I just wanted to go all the way around the circle here. Light jabronis, deep jabronis, all kinds of jabronis here. But Jordan Addison, not really a jabroni, but we're coming back. We scored big time last week against the Packers, a broken game script. Now we got a tight potential game script here with the Jets because they are the Jets. They keep things slow. Aaron Rodgers runs a slow-paced offense. Jordan Addison with his second game back from injury. He's sharing the field with Justin Jefferson. Really, we're getting the rally caps together. We're looking at Jordan Addison as a player that could be getting funneled some targets if they're trying to take away Justin Jefferson in this matchup. Sam Darnold's been looking good. Jordan Addison has some upside in this matchup. Jonathan Mingo. Now we're going to jabroni here for sure. A lot of people don't like Jonathan Mingo because of what he did last year. However, when you're looking at routes ran compared to Xavier Legette and Deontay Johnson, not too far off. We're playing against the Bears, who are always in a weird game script. The ball could be flying in this matchup. I expect this game to be fun. And he looked good in training camp. He had an resurgence in training camp midway through where he was the guy balling out. He looked like he could potentially be the guy. And the fact that he's running on about 90% of the routes, especially last week, and he's being forgotten about. He earned 5 targets. 5 targets is great. He was in on 80% of the snaps. He's a guy to look at. He's a guy to look at as a jabroni player that could do not so jabroni things. Elijah Moore is getting work. He's getting opportunities. He's running a lot of snaps and routes. He could always exceed expectations. Teams can throw on the Washington Commanders. This game could be fun. The Browns could make this slow with their defense. But again, if the Commanders are tougher or roll coverage more towards Amari Cooper on some series, Elijah Moore could get some extra targets. They move him around. He's electric in space. He could be a guy that surprises you. Chase Brown's got speed to burn, and we're going up against the Ravens, a tough defense here. We got a good over and under of 49. That being said, we catch the ball at the flat. We get some space with the ball in our hands. We could be getting some opportunities. Plus, tight matchup here, tight defense we're going up against. They may have a different game plan of attack. They may try to get the ball out quick, and they probably want a faster, more explosive running back out there in some series. So there might be some opportunities where he scores fantasy points. We're not just tailing last week. The strategy with this kind of makes sense. Keon Coleman is in the jabroni category right now. And like I said, going into the season, he's going to be a volatile player. A lot of downs, some ups, some games where he's not going to be there, some games where he just surprises you. This could be the matchup for that. We got a 47.5 over-under. Buffalo's going to be in a game script where they might get pushed to throw the ball. And Keon Coleman might be getting some opportunities. He did see a 73% snap share and 4 targets last week. And maybe we can reel some balls deep downfield. The deep ball is what's going to matter for Keon Coleman. Bringing in a couple deep balls could allow him to be productive for fantasy football. That was the forecast for him coming out of college. Remember, these are suggestions, not projections. So remember, if you're hurting, you're looking at these players. A.D. Mitchell, one of the top wide receivers in the league when it comes to creating separation. I don't know how they really judge that metric, how subjective that is, but he's doing it. And I can really attest to Anthony Richardson missing him on some deep bombs. The fact is, this guy gets deep, and he's a threat on any given Sunday to score fantasy points, to burn some defenses. We got the Jacksonville Jaguars, 46 over-under. A.D. Mitchell's always going to be one of those guys. That's a hope and prayer wide receiver. Deeper leagues, traditional leagues, if you just want to close your eyes and throw in a wide receiver if you're hurting. Bye weeks are coming up. Guys like this who get the deep ball are guys you're probably going to gamble with, and he's one of those guys. Antonio Gibson, a lesser jabroni right now, but a backup running back that might get starter touches this week. It's at least rumored or talked about because Ramondre Stevenson is just fumbling the ball all over the place and hasn't been looking good. Antonio Gibson's getting the ball in the passing game. He was a wide receiver in college, especially that last year. He was getting more rushing attempts, drafted in the 3rd round with 4.3 speed, or used to be 4.3 speed, but he's got a lot of speed and explosiveness on the field. We're going against a Dolphins team that could make this an ugly game script due to the quarterback play and everything else. But if you're looking for a running back with touches, he might be a guy that's sitting on the back end of your depth charts that you may want to throw in there if you're really hurting. Greg Dortch against the Niners. So we're always talking about Michael Wilson or Greg Dortch in all these videos. And the Greg Dortch experience is always going to be weird because it's always going to be like a random game here and there where he gets those targets and scores fantasy points, and then he's forgotten about for weeks. The thing about this Niners matchup, if I'm the Niners, I'm taking away Marvin Harrison Jr. That's an easy thing to project. Michael Wilson on the outside. But if I'm trying to get the ball out quickly against a tough defense, I'm going to Greg Dortch. So I might get some extra targets here in the short game. That could equate to some fancy production. We just got to see where the chips fall. We also have a good over-under here at 50. So the ball might be flying in this matchup. We're looking at Jaleel McLaughlin. Running backs can score fantasy points off the Raiders. McLaughlin's used in the passing game. He's not getting a ton of opportunity to be consistent, but he's also not getting enough opportunity to not be considered a jabroni player at this point. However, if you're looking at a running back that might exceed expectations, this could be the game for him. Manny Wilson. Because the Packers could get up in this matchup, and he could get enough carries to get across the goal line. He's getting more work over these last 2 weeks. Josh Jacobs is kind of slowing down, but Manny Wilson, if he crosses the goal line, might be the guy to look at. Jalen Hyatt. We're going super jabroni here. I told you, we're going jabronis all over the place. The top jabronis, the bottom of the well jabronis. Jalen Hyatt. Malik Neighbors is dealing with that concussion. We do not know if he's going to be in or out. Jalen Hyatt right now has deep speed, looked good in training camp, has not been used, has not been getting on the field, barely any snaps per game. That could change, that could not change. The thing about Jalen Hyatt's the deep ball, those deep targets. Probably going to have an 8 out of 20 in this matchup and over time over the course of his career in this season. That being said, you're just hoping and praying he brings in one deep ball. Jalen Tolbert. Brandon Cooks is out. Jalen Tolbert's been getting a lot of run. He's been getting targets, especially weeks 2 and 3. Slowed down a little bit last week against the Giants. We got a tough matchup against the Steelers. Sometimes a tough matchup could allow extra targets to go to the wide receiver 2, 3, 4 in the offense as the quarterback's spreading the ball around, trying to get the ball out as efficiently as possible. Jalen Tolbert might get some extra opportunities. He's at least going to be running more routes this week, which could lead to fancy production. Justin Watson, one of my favorite jabroni wide receivers in the NFL. Rashee Rice is out. He's a deep threat. We saw his snaps go up last week, and he's one of those guys that if he brings in 1 or 2 of those deep balls, on any given Sunday, it's almost matchup proof. You just got to see if it's going to happen. But if he brings it in, he could give you a splash performance. He's a gamble every single week. So if you do not know what wide receiver to put in, you're in a deeper league maybe, you're decimated, maybe it's that week where bye weeks are hot and you're dealing with some injuries. If you just don't want to think about it, Justin Watson's going to be running routes with Rice out. They're going to be deep downfield, and there's going to be a couple random games where he hits in fantasy football where everybody's like, hey, look at that. That's Justin Watson. It's not going to be consistent. You're not going to be able to predict it. But Justin Watson, every given week, can be in this video due to how he plays the game. And now we're going to see a higher snap share, a higher route participation rate. The odds are going to increase by the week. Those are the jabroni players we're looking at for week 5 for our sneaky starts. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Make sure to hit that subscribe button on the way out. One thing for watching. Catch you on the next video.